Welcome to Sister Chat, where we come together to connect, honor, advocate for, and teach one another. I'm Sister Jenny Zimmerman, and today we're talking about something that touches all of us in one way or another: mental health awareness. I'm thrilled to be joined by two incredible women, Marriah from NAMI and Suzanne from Mercy College. Thank you both so much for being here. Marriah, let's start with you. Could you tell us a little bit about yourself and your role with NAMI?
Sure. My name is Marriah, and I am the Executive Director at NAMI Greater Toledo. NAMI is the National Alliance for Mental Illness. We are one of 39 chapters in Ohio and one of 600 across the country. We are a grassroots agency that really provides support, education, and advocacy, and really attempt to be the voice of the voiceless around mental illness.
I love it. Thank you. Thank you for what you do.
Thank you.
Thank you. And Suzanne, how about you?
My name is Suzanne Hall, and I am the Director of Counseling and Wellness Services at Mercy College. We are a healthcare college located here in Toledo. We are part of the Bon Secours Mercy Health System. And as the Director of Counseling and Wellness Services, I provide individual counseling for our students. And additionally, I do programming on a variety of different topics related to mental health, wellness, prevention, awareness, and sometimes I consult, go in and talk to the classroom. It's a job with a lot of opportunities to go out and just make sure that people are much more aware of mental health and mental illness. And I tell all the students that this is your opportunity to get free counseling since they are going out into tough fields, and I want to make sure that they have a good foundation.
That's awesome. So it's not just based in the college, it spreads out in the areas too. That's wonderful. Thank you. We bring this topic today because as we spotlight Mental Health Awareness Month, it reminds us how important it is to care for our mental health, our emotional well-being, and how that can often get overlooked in our lives. So just to throw a question out there, why do you think mental health is still hard to talk about sometimes? And going with that, what can we do to help normalize some of those conversations? So I don't know if one of you wants to start in first on that.
I don't mind because I like having difficult conversations.
Okay.
And I think there is still a lot of stigma, a lot of shame, a lot of just unawareness around the prevalence of mental health. So I think that we still have a lot of work to do in normalizing everyday mental health as part of our overall wellness. It's one body. I think that's a big piece of it. I also think too that with today's isolation issues, but people feel like they're really close. I can text you anytime. I see all of your updates on social media, but we're really not connected. And so I think there is this need for, honestly, I think people feel invisible and like their voice doesn't matter and nobody cares. And so our job is to really counter that, to make sure they have hope and that they don't have to face this journey alone.
I love it. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you. Anything, Dad?
I spent a lot of time talking about stigma because there is still a lot of stigma for healthcare workers having struggles with mental health or seeking out help. And I bring that up with students all the time. I tell them that is one of the reasons why it's important for them to be laying a good foundation now with their own mental health and having an entire toolbox of coping strategies, because there's so much reluctance. And I think a lot of people are uncomfortable with being the first one to bring the conversation up. And learning how to start the conversation is pretty important, because it's really interesting. Everybody might think that everybody else is fine, but when one person mentions, I have been struggling with anxiety a lot lately, the amount of people that suddenly start sharing that they too struggle with anxiety is huge. And we need to have those conversations happening because that is what gets us connected, and that is what erases that stigma.
Yeah.
I'm going to build on that because it is Mental Health Awareness Month, and we have been doing workplace rallies and all of these presentations around this. And I think what I think the opportunity happens at all levels. And my joy in this role is to challenge leadership, because how are you modeling access? How are you modeling wellness? And we keep this unreachable aim for perfection. That is what everybody should be aiming for, is
Yes.
perfection,
Yes.
perfection, perfection. Show me somebody who's got it perfect. And so I think that we have to really be honest and vulnerable around our own shortcomings. And as leaders, it's kind of my joy every time, every presentation I tell them, this is how I screwed up today. Because I think we put everybody else on a pedestal as if the rest of the world has it figured out. It's just me. I'm the only one that's broken. And we assume we are broken. And I really enjoy challenging that and just normalizing that we all are, right? And that we all have good days, we all have bad days, but everyday mental health is our responsibility as a journey, but also as a society. How are we challenging the way it's always been and making space for it?
And I think mental health looks different for everybody. That awareness looks different. Our struggles, our areas of brokenness, weakness look
Yeah.
different. So, some people, like you said, might be navigating anxiety, depression, some dealing with being burned out or disconnected from others. So, what are some ways that people can care for their mental health, in even if they're small ways to start out? What would your thoughts be?
I have two right off the top of my head.
Okay.
The first one is prioritize your sleep.
Huh. Say it again. Say that again. Go to bed.
It's a basic thing, but it has so much impact. And any student who comes to see me for counseling will say, yes, we've had a talk about sleep in counseling, because it is part of the intake assessment that I do with students to find out what their sleep quality is, the amount of time they're sleeping, and whether they feel rested. Obviously, I work with a population that is notorious for not getting enough sleep. And we know that your learning is impacted and your mental health is significantly impacted. I have seen that over and over again. And I cannot tell you how many times I've said to students, how with a toddler or a preschooler, they're having a meltdown, and we all say, somebody needs a nap. We also, as adults, need to get that sleep. And sometimes when it's night or just evening or the end of a day and everything seems terribly awful, the best thing you can do is go to sleep, because it's going to look different tomorrow.
I love that.
I love it. Yeah, absolutely. You said two things. What was your other?
This one's a little bit harder, but you kind of mentioned this, or you hinted at this. I think learning to practice self-compassion and giving yourself grace.
Yeah.
Your best today might look very different from your best at a different time. I, again, work with a population where there are weeks that are brutal. They have finals, and these are students that many of them are working in the health system already, and they're juggling work, school, and a family. So there are weeks that they just don't have as much capacity to do as many things. And it's very easy to beat yourself up over all the things that you think you're not doing. But my gosh, if you're working and you're at nursing school and you have a family, that's amazing. And just showing up and continuing to show up is huge. And I think learning to recognize that perfection doesn't exist, because we're just going to keep moving the bar. And giving yourself grace for the fact that this was probably the best that you could do today, I think is huge.
I think I'm remembering when I used to work with college students, and they'd come in to meet with me. The first thing, I'd buy them lunch. I'm like, let's start there. I know you haven't eaten.
Yeah.
So let's eat while we talk. And it's, some of those basic necessities, those things can start to go away.
Yes.
So Marissa, let me throw it to you with what are some of the common struggles that you're seeing today, and how can people know when it's time to ask for help, when it's not that borderline, like when it's kind of crossed that threshold of I might need some help here?
I don't know, because I struggle with asking for help. And I think this is, I just have to say thank you for what you just said, because those are the two of the most important things that I bring up is sleep, water, movement. But I find the discussion around self-care cliche if we don't start with self-compassion.
It's-
So like, I feel
I
like
have
I
lots
just
of
want to hug you
opinions
right
about the
now.
idea of self-care.
Yeah, because and I've done a lot of panel interviews with executives. Tell me how you take care of yourself. Well, I hire that done and go to Greece once a year. Must be nice, right? That is not even obtainable to me. That's not reachable for me. And so making it everyday tangible wellness is super important,
And also making it meaningful.
and making it
Because
meaningful.
there's
Yeah.
surface level self-care, which is what most of us think of as
Yes.
self-care, but then there's self-care that looks like setting boundaries.
Yes. Say no. Right.
And those deeper things are the things that we really have to learn to recognize as being self-care and really learn how to practice.
And I'm going to throw one more thing before we
Please.
go on to whatever the question I already forgot you
Okay.
asked was.
Okay, we'll come back.
The next one. But the other thing that I think is super helpful around wellness and what we can do for ourselves that is easy, and what I find fascinating about the brain is brain hacks. Like there are things we can do to train, rewire our brains, and that's so fascinating to me. So for me, and many will call this prayer, I give thanks for 10 things at night before I fall asleep. And
Gratitude.
my dog, my partner, my kid, and safe travels are always top 4, right? But then I try to fall asleep to 20, to 30. I keep going, and it's things like, I wore heels today and I didn't fall. Win, right? Like I think there are so many things that we get caught up around in the negative. We are so aware of all the things that are wrong in the world, but we are missing out on right here, right now, and what's good. So that mindfulness also feel like is cliche because I never felt like I breathed right or did it right. And mindfulness is about less judgment. So it's not right or wrong. It's just be here now. And so I think that gratitude practice has been life changing for me, literally, and is what grounds me in everyday wellness.
That attitude of gratitude.
Yes.
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 Makes a huge difference.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I can tell you something about gratitude to my own personal experience. When the pandemic first hit and we all started working from home, a group of my coworkers, and they've heard me share this story several times, a group of us were just kind of jokingly sending each other emails. Haha, the great thing about working from home is I'm wearing pajama pants, which, everybody was commenting on in the beginning of the pandemic. And then somehow it kind of morphed into we were emailing, doing a group email every day of 3 things we were grateful for. And what I noticed, and I am kind of a cynical, snarky person, and I was like, oh my gosh, gratitude, blah, blah, blah. What I noticed after doing that was I started to really be looking every day
Looking for it.
for things that I could identify that I was grateful for. Because, yeah, you start out with saying, I'm grateful for my dog, I'm grateful for my kids. But then the next day, what do you say? And then after you've sent this to your coworkers for a week, you're like, I got to come up with some new things. So, sometimes they were small things and sometimes they were big. But I really, the thing that just amazed me was the fact that I started to really look and pay attention during my day to find the things that I was grateful for.
And you noticed a shift.
I did. Yeah. And that was just 3 a day.
Yeah.
But it was great to be sharing it with other people too, because it was a really good way to hold each other accountable.
Yeah. As a leader, and as a public speaker, I always end a lot of things with, all right, 2 things you like about yourself, or something good about today. And if you struggle, I'm going to come back for 3, right? And what I found is that people don't think, they're not programmed to think that way. So we have to program ourselves to think that way. And it's been 19 years. And I can tell you, people are like, are you really that positive? No, really, I am. And I mean, I might have some denial down to a science. I'm good. But I really think that gratitude is it's purpose, right? I have purpose in looking for things to be thankful for. Like it was a beautiful drive out here. It's a beautiful campus. So I think we just have to keep looking for those things. And you said this earlier, to get to tomorrow, right? I mean, there's still something that can ground us in the moment so we can get to that next step, right? So I like that a lot.
And I think also it's important to consider, especially when we're talking about thankfulness and feeling grateful for things, particularly in times that don't seem as good. The pandemic was a good example of this. I think it's really important for us to be aware that 2 things can be true at the same time.
Huge.
So instead of saying, I feel grateful for grateful. I don't want to make the mic make sound, sorry. I feel grateful for this thing, but I also feel guilty
Yeah.
because this is a really bad time for a lot of people. Replacing with
And
I feel grateful that I get to spend more time with my kids. And also, I recognize that this is very hard right now for many people.
Yeah.
that's been a huge practice for me just in recent years, that use of the word
Yes.
and I try to like overuse it to like force myself, I'm this and I feel
Yes.
this way, and both are okay.
Yes.
So as we start to wrap up here, we may have some folks watching who might be feeling alone, feel unsure, feel overwhelmed. What words of encouragement can you offer?
Right back at you. You are not alone. We didn't come into this space by ourselves. You don't have to face this life by yourself. NAMI offers free resources and supports. All you have to do is call and say, I don't know what to do. And we'll either just listen or we're going to help point you in the right direction. These systems are complex, and these may be new symptoms for folks. They may have never faced some of the traumas or challenges, or what do I do now? And so just one, you're not alone. Two, be willing to ask for help. I struggle with that myself. And I think we need to be more open. And here's the thing, if I asked you for help, I know you'd help me, but why didn't I ask? So I think it's a lot of us owning and being honest about our journeys to say, I struggle too, and it's okay.
Yeah. Suzanne, anything to add to that?
Yeah. I think be mindful of just because the fact that other people around you might look like they have it together and might look like they're doing okay does not mean that that's really what's going on underneath the surface. We show up and wear masks every day, and you have no idea what is going on. I have had students come in and talk about how they think that they're the only one in the class that is falling apart. And I'm thinking, no, I see other students in your class and they are
You
also
were the
falling
third
apart.
today, right?
So it can feel like we're alone, but the reality is there are probably many, many other people who are struggling. And I wanted to go back to one of the things you asked earlier, and I didn't get a chance to speak on this. How do you know when it's time to ask for help? I will say, so I go in and I talk to the students the first semester of their programs, and I tell them this is a free service for students. Come, you're never going to get free counseling again, like ongoing free counseling. So come now. And I have found that it's much better if they start earlier in the semester than later, because when they start later, they're in panic mode. So if you're starting to think about it and you're like, I don't know if I need it, if you're at the point of thinking about it,
You probably do.
that would be a good time to start, because you probably do need it. You're just not at crisis level. And if you get there and start before you hit crisis level, it's a lot more effective, and then you don't get to crisis level.
Yeah, I think that's really important. Thank you for that. I don't want to stop.
No, right?
We could talk about this for a long time, but I just want to thank you both. This brief conversation has, reminds us that mental health isn't something we just talk about this month. This is an ongoing conversation. It's something we live with. It's, supporting and caring for ourselves, for other people, and I think we've highlighted, and we just pray that no one ever feels like they're going through this alone, because they're not. And, I just thank you for your time, for your wisdom, for what you do for so many people, and the heart that you bring to what you can do. It's very evident. And thank you all for tuning in for Sister Chat. Whether you're checking in on a friend or reaching out for support or simply listening today, you're helping to break the stigma and to build a more compassionate world. And we'll see you next time. And until then, take care of yourself and let's take care of each other.